You're not kidding.
I'm not. I wish I could say I was, but I'm not. Sometimes I'm just like, eh.
But I love it when I know that it's not just me and I'm not the only hot mess mom. Right.
Right.
Oh God, no. You know, girl.
Is this
stopped myself the other
live?
day because I told my son I wanted to knock him out, and I'm like, oh my God, did I just say that?
It would be so much easier though. Like, let's be real.
What?
Sometimes we could just be like, pop, pop.
I want to bop my kid all the time, but he bops back sometimes. Girl.
Here, go back to the... Go. Oh, no, don't touch it. Hang on.
Am I good?
Yeah, but go back to the other screen.
Me too. Mine's 13 now. There are no naps. Yeah, mine are 7.
Oh, we are good. Perfect.
Yeah, naps or naps and a dad.
Thanks, Lovey.
Checking the chat, make sure it's going.
Remember last time it was like...
It was what?
Alright, I got it, love. Go. Go away from me.
Alright, okay, chat's working.
It's working?
Yeah. You're
Okay.
welcome.
Thanks, love.
I feel abandoned.
That's okay. I'm abandoned every day.
That's bullshit.
I'm just kidding.
Can't with y'all.
Okay, so thank you, ladies, for jumping on today. The topic for today is relapse prevention. So I would like to go around and have everybody introduce themselves. So I'm going to start. I'm Olivia from Choosing Recovery. And then Tina, you can go ahead.
I'm Tina. I live in Buffalo. I am from, I guess, NA, and I have a home group called Unity, Integrity, and Grace.
Awesome. You can go ahead, Tiffany.
I'm Tiffany. I am from Gadsden, Alabama. I do a lot of Celebrate Recovery and also AA. I just celebrated 3 years of sobriety, and I'm also married to a recovering addict.
Awesome. Jenny, do you have a moment to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Jeannie. I'm from Minot, North Dakota, or as I call it, Southern Canada. I am an addict in recovery with just over 11 months. I'll celebrate my year on 5/19.
Woo!
Yeah.
Awesome. And I just got Lexi in, so let's give her a second. Hi! Can you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we're going to open it up for relapse prevention.
Yeah. I am Lexi. I'm a mother in recovery. I'm from Buffalo, New York. And Lexi! Yeah, hi. Oh, Tina.
Hi!
Hi. How are you? Great. Wow, small world. But yeah, here. Okay, sorry. Okay, small world.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on today. So I am just going to open the floor to anybody that wants to share about relapse prevention and what they do, or just anything in that topic.
Okay, well, I guess I can go first. So I didn't even mention clean time. I'll celebrate 6 years in August.
Awesome!
Yay! So my experiences, because I had 5 years before, my experience with relapse prevention is that steps is my biggest, for me, the steps of NA are like my biggest thing for relapse prevention. And also, of course, like meeting attendance, a higher power. I caught, she's from Alabama. What was your name? Tiffany. I'm just talking about being married to a recovering addict. I'm also with a recovering addict, and like keeping my recovery separate from his, which is another thing for relapse prevention. It's so difficult because I want to dictate like his way of recovery, which is just different from mine. So relapse prevention for me is like paying attention to my spiritual condition and like working the steps. And like I am so stuck right now on like my second round of steps. And even though like, they talk about like a spiritual relapse and emotional relapse and spiritual, emotional, and then like physical. And like sometimes I'm really stuck on like an emotional relapse. Like I am a raging bitch. really not practice the spiritual principles to the best of my ability. So I think sometimes I'm in an emotional relapse. That's my experience right now. That's what I'm going to share in the past, and hopefully someone else will talk.
Yeah, I'll talk. I might get interrupted because my kid's getting ready to come out. But so I too, I didn't have as much screen time as you. And most of mine was forced. I was in prison, and I had just under 2 years. And you know, Jackson, stay on the road, please. You know, mine came with working in a men's or a resentment. I'm not sure which it was, but I've had to teach myself this. Now I'm almost a year sober, so I was in relapse mode for about a year and a half after my 2 years, and now I have a year, and I've had to just, you know, tell myself it's okay. Like I don't have to force myself to make those amends. I don't have to force myself to do certain stuff and step work. I've worked the steps twice, both in AA and NA. You know, I since have disconnected myself from the program due to personal reasons. But still, I still work the steps and I still practice things that I've learned throughout in my recovery. But, you know, that I used to take things so literal. Every step was so literal, and I had to do everything to a T. And I learned, you know, and I think each relapse is, as much as we avoid them and as much as we don't want to go through them, they're all a learning process, right? Like, I've learned through so much through, I call myself the relapse thing because I've spent about 10 years from the time I started to now, and I've relapsed probably 10 to 11 times. So, I mean, not a lot, but if you consider the time there, you know, sometimes I get a week, or sometimes I get, you know, 90 days. It just, the length varies, but, you know, every time I learned a different lesson, or every time I added something to my next recovery journey that I can use, you know, and this time, you know, and everybody, you know, when I'm talking to people, they're like, well, what's different this time? You know, this time I'm not forcing, like, I've always been one, like, okay, if I'm going to get sober, I have to be part of a program, I have to follow this step, I have to do this, and I have to do that. This time I'm allowing myself to not do those things, you know, like, I felt it was kind of just, and more because, you know, like, I go to SMART program, or SMART recovery meetings, I go to, Mara, you know, I just, hold on just a second. You have a good day. Sorry, I have to take a break, guys. I'll come back, though.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, I don't know what happened. It kicked me off. It was finished. Something like what she was talking about with having to keep your recovery separate from your spouse's. Like, I have 3 years of sobriety, and my husband has 10 months. So there was a lot of time, you know, especially when I was in early sobriety, that he was still using, and I mean, it was in and out of jail. Everything actually got crazier for him after I got sober. And so, like, everybody asked me all the time, how did you not relapse? How did you not relapse with him doing all that? And I'm like, well, first of all, my DOC was heroin. And by this time, he had moved on to meth. I had no desire to do that, and I was watching it completely change him into a person that I did not even recognize. So it actually made me hate it, even more so. But as far as, like, an everyday practical things that I do to, like, I try to be proactive about relapse, because while it doesn't have to be part of your recovery, if you get too comfortable, it will be. If I'm not as diligent about recovery as I was when I'm sitting in a parking lot waiting for 5 hours on the dope man that's 10 minutes away, you know, like, you know, and I'm going to wait 5 hours for some dope because I'm sick, and dude said he's been 10 minutes away for 3 hours now, you know, like, I can put that kind of effort into my recovery, and if I don't, I'm going to end up relapsing eventually. And so one of the things I do, since I am, you know, benzos was my first drug choice, and that happened due to, like, my psychiatrist was prescribing them to me because I also have anxiety and depression and OCD and ADHD, all the letters. So, you know, one thing that I've done is I've red flagged myself on purpose at my family doctor, at my psychologist doctor, and having to go in there and inform him that I could only see him instead of his nurse practitioners because I manipulated them into giving me what I wanted. You know, I had to be very honest with him about that. And, you know, sometimes the shame prevents us from being honest a lot of the time. But not only did I do that, but I also red flagged myself at my pharmacy too. And they know that the only controlled medication I'm allowed to have is my ADHD meds. So I told them, like, safety nets for myself because just in case I ever get stupid. Like, you know, sober Tiffany is preparing for stupid Tiffany if she ever shows back up.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah. Because I don't trust myself. Like, obviously, if I made the decisions to get me there once, it can happen again. I'm not immune to it.
Yep.
So, okay, you know what your problems are. You know yourself better than anybody else. If you end up getting back in addiction, by the time you're at that point, your, you know, decision-making process is not great. So, you know how you come to those decisions. So, what can you do as, you know, in sobriety to prevent your stupid self from making those decisions? So, if I go and I try to, you know, manipulate the doctors, even if I manipulate them, my pharmacy's not going to give them to me either.
Right.
I think that's
That's what's the important thing, like, tying in with that is, like, the communication aspect is one of the biggest parts of relapse prevention, is being so open and honest with everyone.
yes.
And not just, like, you know, picking and choosing which parts and which people. It's really important to tell on yourself, to walk in, to know, like, your limits, but also utilizing, like, the people around you as a tool to not relapse, you know, because that's essentially what we do with support. Like, support's probably, I think for me, support is the number one relapse prevention tool for me, for my life.
And I think
Absolutely.
it's amazing to, like, have people, like that was a huge part for me for relapse prevention, was telling on myself. I told on myself all the time, and I felt so empowered by it. You know, like, being able to separate me from the addiction and being able to hold that accountable was really important for me in my early sobriety and still today. Even like Tina was talking about, the physical, mental, and spiritual relapses. You know, like, there's 2 relapses before you physically pick up.
Exactly.
And I think that's why it's so important for people to understand that there are 3 types of relapses.
Right.
And 2 of them won't kill you, but they'll lead you to get killed. You know, and the physical one, a lot of people don't make it back. You know, and if you make it out of a relapse, my heart goes to you. You are loved. I'm always emotional. But know that you are loved, and we will fight for you. You know, like, we will fight for you. And I think that's so important. A lot of people, like, for myself, I always felt so worthless. I always felt like a junkie prostitute. And I literally thought that was all I was going to hold as a title for the rest of my life.
Right.
And I remember when I first got clean, I came home from rehab and jail, and I was just talking to my brother, and I said, I don't know if I'll ever not be a junkie prostitute. I said this to my brother, and it didn't even, like, process in my head what I was going to say. I just said it, and he looked at me, and he goes, no, you're my sister. That day, he gave me a different title than what I thought.
Right.
You know, and I was like, whoa, wait, I'm a person? Like, and it, like, but that's where I think it's so important, too, is to know that it's all normal. It's all very, very normal. It's just catching it before it's at that point of where it's dangerous, because it gets dangerous quickly, you know?
And that's why I have to pay attention to exactly where I go, because if I'm starting to, like, become emotionally, you know, in a huge emotional relapse, and then it becomes spiritual, I don't know how much longer I have before I really have to pay attention, because the last thing I want is physical. Because I'm honest all across the board. my psychiatrist is never going to give me a benzo. I all the time will laugh. I'm like, okay, it is time for it's time for Xanax, and she'll start laughing. And so like, she's like, you might have all of the qualifications to get a Xanax. She's like, well, you're never going to get one here. She's like, because we already know what happens. I'm like, I know what happens. I'm like, but it's time, and we will laugh our asses off. But no, I'm never going to get a benzo. I'm never going to get. Every doctor in my life knows that, sure, I'm a drug addict, but I'm so many other things. Exactly like you said. I'm a drug addict, but I'm a recovering drug addict. I'm a mother. I'm a woman. I have all these other things. Like, when I first came in broken, like, yeah, I'm a prisoner. I'm someone who's been in prison. I'm a prostitute. Like, I've had STDs. I'm all those other things too, like where I can allow myself to feel dirty. And if I stay in those things, I'm probably always going to use.
Absolutely.
But once I start to think, like, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a mother, like, those positive titles is where, like, we start thinking about, like, I think that's where I start to feel like the spiritual, the emotional, where I can start putting those things in between, like having a physical relapse, is where I start feeling good about myself. The other things that I know about is if I'm living in character defects, I'm on my way to a relapse. Like, that's why I believe, like, once I'm no longer practicing, like, stealing, lying, cheating, those kinds of behaviors are usually the ones, and that's what I believe what I've learned in NA, is like, when character defects are the defects that are going to take me back, you can't get out of, like they talk about, you get back into a corner by them and you might get high. Like, that's been my experience. That was my experience last time with the 5 years. The more of my character defects that raged their head, eventually I ended up high. So.
And I think
the thing. Go ahead, Olivia.
No, I was just going to agree with you, Jenny. When you were talking earlier and you were talking about how you don't push yourself and you're not hard on yourself, I do want to just recognize that, because I think that's very powerful, because that's what exactly, I spoke on this in our previous one, but that's what I did. I was addicted to sex, money, self-harm. I was addicted to everything under the sun other than drugs when I was left with myself. And I gave myself time to heal from those and to take care of those one thing at a time. And I'm telling you what, when I worked the steps, that's when the healing started falling into the place for the other addictions that I was trying to hide from myself. So go ahead, Jenny. Thank you.
I was going to say, I think, honestly, the thing that has helped me the most in my recovery is, I've been to, I think, 9 treatment centers, but this one that I went to right before, so I got arrested, spent 28 days in jail, then I went to a 30-day inpatient, and they taught me a different tool, and they taught me to have honest conversations about my relapses and where they start, like you were talking about, like the pre-relapse, the emotional relapse, before the physical relapse, and so I did that when I came home this night. Now, I don't have a lot of people in my close circle. I have my significant other, I have my kids, of course, but I didn't have that conversation with them. I have a couple good friends, my PO, but the biggest one was my significant other's mom, because she helps me a lot with my kids, and my significant other's a whole other cup of tea. You guys are lucky you're with somebody that's in recovery, because I haven't found that yet, but we'll talk about that another day. But so it gave me this tool to have, like, what warning signs are there? And when I allowed myself to think about that, things as little as, like, being on social media too much, or allowing myself to be on Facebook Messenger, or, not deleting contacts, just little things that we may not think is a pre-relapse, but they are, and once I started breaking that down, like, am I, like, for me, so like somebody mentioned shoplifting, that is a huge thing for me. I did it all the time in my active addiction, so when I notice myself having those thoughts, like, I just have those conversations with people, like, hey, I'm having these thoughts, typically they lead to, me wanting to use, I just want to have a conversation about it, and I think that's so important, is to not feel ashamed, as addicts, we're so worried how we're going to be judged, if we have a relapse, that we don't have the conversations about thinking about a relapse. And I've allowed myself, like, going back to that, allowing myself to not care this time. If I'm feeling something, if my mental health isn't okay, if I'm thinking about using because, you know, I let it out there. You know, whether it's to my PO, whether it's to my significant other's mom, you know, I just let anybody who will listen to me. And TikTok's been huge for that, you know, allowing myself to get on there and be vulnerable and make videos. And it has allowed me a whole different network of people. So I think that's a really cool thing that I didn't have the first few times in recovery that I have now, is that support from, you know, our TikTok community.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like my mother-in-law, literally, there have been times, especially, and mainly in active addiction, because my husband and I were using at the same time. We're both only children, so, you know, he's her only kid, and we lived next door to them for the majority of the time that we were using, and she was stupid when it came to drugs. Like, she didn't know what to look for, she didn't know what the signs were. So, like, one of the things that really helped me in early recovery was the fact that she was willing to listen and understand, and attempt to understand addiction, because she didn't. And she did research and she looked into things, and, you know, as I've made safety nets with myself with the doctors and things, I've also made safety nets with her and with my mom. Like, I had to tell her, okay, when your eyes look like this, it's because of this. When they look like this, it's because of this. If I start being withdrawn or whatever, or, you know, if I start, forgetting a lot of stuff, which I have ADD too, and that's just a whole different topic or whatever. But, you know, I think also we forget, like, you can make all the safety nets you want, but if you're not honest, like, if it's still in the back of your mind, okay, I don't want to tell her this just in case, you know, like, not only do you have to be honest with yourself, but you have to be brutally honest with the people that are closest to you that might notice a potential relapse before you even notice it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to have people that are willing to be able to call you out on your crap.
Yeah.
And to tell you, hey, you remember when you told me about this, you're doing that. And then you, in turn, have to be able to accept that information and not, you know, no, I'm not, you know. But I think it goes along with mental health as much as it does addiction, because, like, I deal with severe depression and anxiety, and it's bipolar depression, so it's here for a long time and then it's gone for a long time, you know. But one of the things that I do for that is I'm really bad about getting a shower is a chore when you're depressed.
Yeah.
It is just like, once you get in there, you're good, but the self-talk and trying to get yourself to actually do it. So
it's brutal.
I've been kind of dealing with some depression here lately. And so one of the things that I'm going to be doing in the next couple of days is chopping off my hair to the point where I have to fix it. Because I've noticed myself, it's always in a ponytail, it's whatever, my hair's curly, I can get away with dry shampoo and doing all the things, and I know that I'm neglecting my self-care. So I know that that's something, and I have to do that every once in a while. Like, I have to chop my hair off, because if it's like this, I'll throw it up and go. But if I don't have that option, I don't have a choice. You know, so I think it's just as important to be honest with people about signs of problems with your mental health as it is with your addiction, because most of the time those issues are what initiate a relapse anyway.
Yep.
So.
I definitely think it's so huge to, like, I don't know if this is gonna, like, come off sounding, probably not. I always think things sound weird and then everybody's like, yeah, I totally understand. So, no, but, like, right. Well, there's a part of me that, like, I think that it's important for people to understand, like, the brain chemical and how your brain will rewire itself due to chemical dependency. And even we can get addicted to other things in the same way that your brain will rewire itself, right? So I think it's important for people to know that, especially in early recovery, that's against you. right? Like, your brain is trying to rewire itself to where it doesn't, it can rewire itself to where it doesn't want, like, the withdrawal and everything will trigger it to use again. So then there's the pause and everything. Anyways, what I'm trying to say and get to through all of that is there was a part, like, and when I hit 2 years, I just wanted to use. Not because I was craving it, not because I had a trigger, not because, like, I sat down and I talked to my sponsor about it, and I was like, you want to know why? Because it was fun. And I think that my problem is at that time, I was in that emotional and spiritual relapse because I was looking at my using as fun. Because I had a fucking blast. Okay? It was fun until it wasn't fun anymore. And I'm telling you, when it wasn't fun, it wasn't fucking fun. But I was, like, focusing on the part where it was. And that was such a dangerous place for me to be, you know, and, like, play the tape all the way through and stuff. But just know that everybody experiences around the same thing that you are all experiencing, right? Like, don't be, I think it's amazing what Ginny said, is the fact that, like, just tell on yourself, you know, and tell people, invite people into there, because it's okay. It's okay, like, we've all been there, like, we understand, and there's something about breaking that silence and holding yourself accountable. To me, personally, that was my power against my addiction, is I got to look at myself and say, okay, so here's Olivia, and she's a recovering drug addict, and then here's fucking crazy shitbag over here, and all she wants to do is ruin her life and die. Like, literally. So, but I could just, like, look at it and say, okay, well, obviously this is where it's coming from, but why? And how can I protect myself from that? And I just think that's important to definitely break it down. And it's okay sometimes to not know, because, like I said, that's what we were used to, and that's the way our brain was. So it does take a lot of time to balance.
Well, for me, that's what sponsorship is for, and I have the ability to be vulnerable with my sponsor. So that's like what Yanni was talking about, like being able to be honest. Like, I love what she said, like, okay, so if I could tell on myself, like, to my sponsor or to other people, like, hey, this is the kind of shit that does trigger me. Like, if I want to steal, or if I'm starting to talk about, like, cheating on my boyfriend, at the time it was my husband. Cheating was a huge thing for me. Like, I like to cheat and get away with it. You know, if I could be, like, branding for me to say that, he would bug the fuck out. But, like, those are the behaviors, like, I put to sleep. But I'm able to be, if I could tell my sponsor, like, I want to steal. Like, I want to walk out of Walmart with a fucking TV, because I get high from that. But once I get high from that, I'm looking to, like, get high from something else. If I could be honest about those things, like, thank God, like, so then I have a small group. I don't have a lot of people in my circle either anymore. But I have a small group of, like, women, and then my significant other, and then my sponsor. My mom is in recovery. My sister is in recovery. Like, I have a whole family of fucking people in recovery where I could be like, hey, listen. And if I could tell them, like, those behaviors, like she said, you know, like, this is what's going on in my fucking head. I'm so psychotic. Like, this is what I'm thinking about. With 5 years clean, like, I turned a trick. I think I had 3 years clean and I turned a trick. And, like, I had not done that in recovery. Like, that was a using behavior for me. Yep. And, like, for a year I sold this guy a dream, right? Like, just to get shit from him, like money, perfume, clothes, you know, blah, blah, blah. And eventually it turned me around. Like, eventually I had to have sex with him, right? But he paid me. I got up from that feeling so dirty, you know, and, like, I wanted to get high, but I didn't. I survived that. But talk about an emotional and a spiritual relapse. Yeah. But I survived it, and I had 3 years clean. And, but I knew, like, holy fuck, and I shared it in a week. Like, I got up in a meeting, and I'm sharing, like, here I am, the speaker, and I'm like, fuck it. Talk about, like, letting go of something, but being able to be honest and vulnerable with it. And I'm like, oh my God, everyone in the NA is going to know that I turned a trick. But I'm thinking, I turn tricks, like, all of active addiction. So what? I did it in recovery, too. You know, and, like, so I'm not this spiritual guru, you know what I mean? So, you know, but I was able to be honest about, like, my vulnerability. So it's, like, being vulnerable. And, like, through sponsorship is where I've learned that behavior. But that's what everyone is sharing. And, like, no, like, recovery isn't cookie cutter. Like everyone is like practicing different ways, and I think that's great. And we're all at the same place, like sitting here clean or sober today, able to share about relapse prevention. Is Lexi still here?
Yeah. She's.
Lexi.
Yes, hi. Hold on. My daughter's in once again. Hold on one second. Hi, yes, I'm sorry. She's something else. But, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I.
I have no idea what's going on. Did Tina just call you out? Like, yo.
I haven't heard her talk at all. I've known Lexi like my whole time clean just about.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I haven't heard her talk at all.
We've all in and out seen each other, like, bump and bump. But, yeah, no, I'm just completely on board with the entire topic because, like, that's something that's huge for me is being able to tell on myself because, like, I went into those funks where I was slipping and I was hiding too, you know, and I ended up in a really bad depression, like really, really bad, and I almost didn't even get out of it.
I think something that's really helped me, and I use it a lot, like too, when people reach out to me and when I was sponsoring women, I used it a lot. It's helped almost everybody I know. I call them behavior chains. I'm sure everybody's done one at one point in time, but it's just like breaking something down. So like, if I'm having a thought of whatever, you know, say it of using, right, then I break it down with like, what emotions am I feeling? What thoughts are triggering that? What are my consequences, positive and negative? There's always a positive to it, right? You get relief. And then I come up with like a contradictory action. So like a better action, you know, like go playground with my kids, and then I break that down. And I can usually map my way right out of that thought process. And so like breaking shit down is so essential to me, you know, because you have to really get to the root of things, because if you're thinking about using, there's a reason why. There's something behind that. And I think unless you identify that, you know, your emotions or your thoughts or whatever it is going on, it's going to linger there. But breaking it down for me and trying to figure out why, what, when, and where, and then, you know, going into solving those issues alone has really helped me too. You know, a few weeks back, I talked about it on my TikTok too. I couldn't get away from it. There was I dispatched for a cab company, and somebody left some drugs in a cigarette pack. And of course, they had to bring that cigarette pack into the office. But I'm pretty open about being in recovery, so they knew to bypass me. But it's still just, you know, that thought of it being right there. And then we're remodeling my apartment, and my significant other busted up a wall, and out fell a bag of dope and a scale. And then he admitted to using a few weeks back. I guess it's been a month and a half or so. And that all happened in like a week. And I really had to break those situations down before they became something bigger. But, you know, just being in tune with how I'm feeling, what I'm going through, what my thoughts are, really helps me in the relapse process. And it's helped me this time out of some really sticky situations.
And I definitely think that, like, when I ended up in a sticky situation in my early recovery, I think I was like 7 months clean because I spent 6 of it institutionalized. But I came home and I ended up getting on with, I was going to outpatient, and I ran into a girl that was at my rehab. Well, fast forward, blah, blah, blah. She's shooting up Suboxone, and I was heroin and crack. And I fell in love with crack, right? Like, I hated heroin, but I used it because I had blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so she was doing that, and I was like, oh my gosh, it scared the living fuck out of me. I was so petrified, and the first thing I thought of was, go to a meeting. What time is it? When is the next meeting? How am I going to get there? I have to get out of this situation, is the first thing that my brain told me. So I think back to that so often because I want to live today. And as much as I hated myself and as much as I wanted to die, today there's a part of me that wants to live. And that's where I think that moment of clarity finally hit me, is because my first thing was, and I just said it out loud, like I didn't even know what to do, and all of a sudden I'm like, I gotta go to a meeting. Like, I gotta go. Like, I have to leave right now. And the girl's like, wait, what? Can I come? Right? And I was like, Of course. Come on, let's go. We're going to a meeting, right? And of course, there was a drug deal on the way, and I'm like, yo, I can't be in a situation like my so I'm like going crazy, right? And I'm like, this is so bad. But I made it to a meeting, and she got there with me. Of course, she got high, and then left. But like, I survived that day. And I remember I told my probation officer, and I said, this is what happened to me, right? Like, I told that myself all the time. And he goes, so you had to dance with the devil and you outdanced him. And I was like, yes. Okay. Wow. Okay, cool. Right? And then I was cleaning my room later on, and I found a whole bag of like 20 bags of heroin, spoon, needle. And I remember like I found it and I was just holding it in my hand. And I was like, this is going to kill me. This is going to kill me. This is going to kill me. And that's the only thing that, it was like on replay. And I'm holding this and I was like, what do I do? Like I sat there, and then the other part of me is like, use, no one will know. Use right now and no one will know. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to die right now. So I ran up to my dad and I was like, take this. I don't want to talk about it. I have no idea what's going on. I have to go call my sponsor. You know what I mean? So I called my sponsor, and it was just like, at those times I realized that today I do want to live. And the next thing after that is, by all means, don't use. Don't use. People say don't pick up. If you pick it up, don't fucking use it. Put it back down. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's like, we can get to the point where we get that far and we can still stop it. You know, like, just take a minute and like grasp that, because I think it's really important to realize what we're doing. I have not yet relapsed in my recovery, and I say yet because you're eligible too, but I have become a sponge of just knowledge. Everywhere I go, every person that opens their mouth about their recovery or addiction from something, I listen to it and I live it, because I think that's important for, like, I heard somebody said, I got too much on my plate and I got overwhelmed and I went back out. I'm scared to get too much on my plate. Like today I was like, babe, I'm overwhelmed. Like, I'm overwhelmed. What do? He goes, just stop. And I'm like, stop what? He's like, just stop all of it. And I was like, but I can't. You know, so I took a moment and I came back, but like, just listen to people. You can learn. Wisdom is listening. And just being able to listen to everybody's experiences can stop you from living that same experience. That's it.
And that's like what's huge too, is like you even telling on yourself about that, like, I'm so overwhelmed, like, you know, that prevents that thought staying stuck up here, because this is like a dangerous place for us, you know, like, this is not a place that just allows us to do this perfectly. Like, we rely on each other and we rely on others, and you know, that's where getting these thoughts out of our head is just so important, so that they're not a reality here, they're a reality on the outside, and like, we can take action and come up with solutions, and like, you know, just get advice from healthy people. And yeah, I completely agree. So
awesome. I don't know if the other girls like fell off or what's going on, but they probably lost connection or just got busy, so no worries. Do we have anything else that we want to share?
I think everything, I really appreciated what everyone shared.
Awesome. Well, thank you ladies so much. Lex, I want to get with you. So, like, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm overwhelmed and I need help.
hey, message me.
Okay,
Talk
great.
to you. It was great to see you.
Oh, I'm so
I live
glad.
in Buffalo. It was great to see you through Olivia in Watertown.
I know. Hi. Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies, so much. I will.
Thanks, Olivia.
Yes, I will reach out and I will get everybody hopefully together in a group so we can figure out where to go from here.
Sounds great. I'm always available.
Awesome. Have a great night. Thank you.
Have a great night, guys. Bye.
That was amazing! Now what am I doing?